Here she comes. Bum, bum, bum. Hello, hello.
Hello.
The one and only. Here's the famous Annie Penner, everybody. Hey. Hooray. Congratulations for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
In the use of my Texan today, all y'alls, I don't know if I'm using it correctly, all y'alls, but all y'all, this is the famous Annie Penner. This is my secret weapon. She is in the controls of social media for the TDO network, and she's one of my biggest partners in crime to design this great experiment we're doing. So hello, Annie. Say hello to everybody.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. I've been working with David for the past year, and it's been amazing. And we've just entered this amazing experiment over the past 6 weeks or so of starting the TDO network, and it's been a blast. So it's very exciting to be here.
Boom. Annie, I think, what I wanted to say first is you have to tell us a little bit about what was your first day at TDO because, you were right out of your master's, right? When you started with us, so fresh from college, and you interview in Dallas around April, May, I think, right? Like something like that.
Yeah, almost exactly a year ago.
But you started in September. We connected with you in August, at the end of August. But tell us a little bit how was the process. I think there's a lot of good what to do if you want to jump into the industry. I think you did it pretty well, but I want to walk us through your lens.
All right. So before we get to my first day, which was unique, so I realized about halfway through my master's, I had kind of an epiphany that I really wanted to jump into arts admin. As much as I was loving performing, I was realizing that admin was something I was really good at, and it was something I could really jump into and be successful with. In addition to my love of singing, I could really jump into this career. And so I started looking at summer programs. I started looking at internships initially. And I had a few that I interviewed with that went well. I didn't actually get into what I, at the time, thought was my number one choice for that summer. But then I got an amazing offer from Des Moines Metro Opera. And that was definitely the beginning of something great. And so I brought that happy news to my amazing voice teacher, and we were chatting, and I was already looking towards the next year.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I was going to be graduating. I knew that I had this plan. My plan at that time was to nanny and kind of see where the next year took me. And I was hoping to possibly maybe try to do an internship at the Dallas Opera. So I talked to my teacher about that, and I was like, I don't know if they have any opportunities, but I'd love to look into it, even if I'm just grabbing coffee, a couple times a week for people, just to get my foot in the door. Even if it's not paid, I just want to get my foot in the door. So my teacher said, okay, I actually know someone from the Dallas Opera. I know David Lomeli. And so I'm going to reach out to him and see if he'll chat with you. So she did.
Shout out to Lauren McNeese.
Yeah, shout out to my amazing teacher, Lauren McNeese, who I adore, and she's been so supportive ever since I kind of had my epiphany of what I wanted to do. And so Lauren contacted David, and David said he would be happy to chat. So I emailed you, and it was a little while before we nailed down a time, but then around April, again, shout out to another amazing person, Caroline Walker, who is the one that organized my whole first interview with David. So I came in, it's actually funny, my printer broke that morning, so I didn't have my resume printed. I walked in and I was like, okay, is there any way I can print my resume? And Caroline Walker, beacon of calmness and preparedness, said, I got you. She printed it.
I didn't know these ones.
I know.
Wow.
This is a secret.
Wow.
So thank you, Caroline. Clutch player. So she helped me out that morning. And we had our interview, and I didn't really know it was an interview. I thought I was just coming in to say, is there any way I can get an internship or get my foot in the door, like truly thinking I'll get coffee for people, like I'll be that person. And And all of a sudden we started talking about like my views on things, and you started asking me more interviewee questions, like my takes on different operas and what's my favorite opera and what do I see in the opera industry, what do I see in the future of it, and where's it going. And so we talked a lot about that kind of stuff, and I shared my interest in new opera, and I also I did a history degree in my undergrad, so I talked about examples like Glory Denied and how that really resonated with me with my two loves of American history and opera, and why I think that opera is so important. So we had a really great conversation, and at the end of that, you said that there might be some possibilities opening up, which was not what I had expected at all going into that interview. And so, and you said you'd keep in touch and we'd see what the next step was. We fast forwarded a couple months, and I was at Des Moines. It was my first or second week there in that internship, working under the incredible Sam Carroll. So shout out to Sam Carroll, who was an amazing mentor for me that summer as well. And I got a call from a number I did not recognize. And I normally, back in my life, I screen all calls I don't recognize because of spam. But since I had been working there and I had been doing a lot of help with the artists, I knew that it could be an artist calling from the program. And it was my future boss calling me. And you said, Annie, I'm sorry, I've been in Europe. I promised that I hadn't forgotten about our interview because it had been 2 months. I'd heard nothing. So I was like, well, maybe that's not going to happen. And you're like, I promise that's not the case. I haven't forgotten. And then you came that summer to do panel auditions, and of course Sarah was in Botsek, and so we were able to have a couple more interviews that summer, and then.
Well, let's just say two things. I'm gonna jump in your monologue for one thing. Number one thing that I like piqued my interest right away. It was that I asked you what's your favorite opera, and you didn't observe, I have to say, or describing also about what you wanted in singers. Both concepts. You didn't just want to form and describe form. You had substance. You wanted to say these make me feel like this way, and I want singers that sing and provoke this emotion. It was not just about like, oh, I really enjoy like tall palette passaggio singing. Like, no, it was not about form. And for me, one of the biggest mentors that I had as a director was a Mexican guy that I love, and he said to me, like, the biggest compliment that I get when I direct something is if people talk about themselves and not about the play, so that for me is always like the methodology: create a change, an emotional transformation through art. And so when I saw that you were saying those things, I was like, interesting. And she's a kid, out of school. That's amazing. And then, of course, it's a lot of like discipline and a lot of long hours and a lot of passion, because we're in the non-for-profits, all these extra things that are difficult, that I was like, how can we filter the attitude that is necessary, the passion, because right now she's out of school. So I came to Des Moines, and I needed to leave from Des Moines in a 6 a.m. back. And for the people that are not familiar with Des Moines Metro Opera, the nearest airport from where like all the festival activities are is like 45 minutes. And there's not a lot of like Uber and car and things like that.
Not so much Uber in Indianola.
Yeah. So I was talking to Sam Carroll about like, he has in the past like pick me up or himself or something, and Sam was like, no, we got you, Annie's gonna drive you. And I was like, oh, okay. So Annie came at 3 in the morning to pick me up, and she did, it was, you were like, we're awake, and you started talking about, we had an interview in the car.
Right.
That was one of the interviews. I ended coming back a few weeks later, and then we have kind of like a little more formal chat. But it was pretty impressive to be like, she's clearly not shy at going for what she wants, because it was like, well, I can get another try at this guy. That was pretty impressive. So those two things, like having your own opinion, even if you're starting, like it's going to be a transformation of what I'm sure that when we go through a little bit who you are after a year with the company, or at least a season, and oh my God, what season, right?
What a
Uh,
season.
what a season. Uh, you're a little different, but you were, you were true to yourself from the beginning. And then the second, it was like you show that you had a work ethic that I was like, this is what we need in the artistic departments. We need to hustle. So please continue. Sorry.
No, no, it's all good. Yeah, we had a good old 3 a.m. interview. That's always good.
Right?
It's always good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was before coffee too, so
And we're not addicts in this department.
Right, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we had our kind of more formal interview later in the summer, and then I was just kind of, at this point I was living on a prayer. I knew that there was some possibility. I actually, shout out to my roommates who were so supportive, because we had already had a plan to get in a house. We were going to move into a house together, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to live in Denton if there was any chance I was going to get this job. So I actually pulled out in like July, knowing I was going to be homeless. And then I was going to be couch surfing, and they were so supportive. They're like, "Don't worry about it. Like we've got a plan. We're gonna continue, and moving into this other apartment." And so I was like, "All right, I'm gonna take a chance on this, and I'm gonna move back to Denton." With really no prospects and no place to live. So that was an exciting part of life. Did some couch surfing. That was great. So thanks to everyone who let me couch surf. But I was back, I think, for just a few days when I got a call from you, and I think Caroline was on the call too, and
Yep.
I got the job offer. So that was really, really exciting, and I was thrilled. I was literally like moving boxes into storage, because I had to move out of my old apartment without having a new apartment to move into. So we were just I was just throwing my stuff in my limbo phase, and then I got the job offer. So I was ecstatic. It was like a dream come true. Like right out of my master's, I was going to be employed. That's amazing. And not only employed, but employed at an L1 house in the country. So I could not have been more thrilled. Which leads us to my first day of work, which was just a couple of days, a couple of weeks
just
later.
yeah, like you I have to say that you have had a baptism fire to start, because you came in and almost like to start with, I told you that also you were going to start, but you and I had like a finite day, because I also was taking a new job with Munich.
Right.
So first day of the work, I tell you, well, welcome here. We're gonna be for a while, but I'm also gonna start working for everybody who that software. And you're like, oh,
Casually.
that was one. And then, like, literally, is your first day. There's no orientation. There's no like, where is your desk? Because that morning, there was. That was something very shaky. You want tell us?
Yeah,
I have never heard it tell it from your side.
Yeah, so there was some news. So of course I was like super nervous. First day at the adult job, and so I was not really actually on my phone that much that morning. I was not paying attention to the news. I was worried about how I looked for my first day and getting there on time and all that good stuff. And I walk in, and you say hi, welcome, blah blah blah, and you go, have you seen the news? And I was like, no. And you were like, well, Placido Domingo, he just got Me Too'd. So that was a huge deal for the company, because he was a major part of our season. And not only that, but he was a mentor to you, and it was just some really heavy news for the company that day. And so that kind of took everything by stride, and that was the center of figuring everything out from that. So it really was baptism by fire, because on day one it was like we were in crisis mode. Like, what do we do? How do we handle this? What does the company do?
There's no orientation about Annie. There's no.
Yeah,
it became
no
about everybody else, but Annie is starting her new job that day.
Yeah,
Thankfully, you didn't quit, but it was a very tough day. Like I remember that I felt at the end of the day, it was such a difficult day for the company, and it was such a difficult day for the person, the people involved, you know, for Emmanuel's great relationship with Maestro Domingo, my personal very 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 good friendship with Maestro Domingo, and all
Mm-hmm.
these things that I don't want to get into that part of the debate. I'm not interested, and but it's just about, like, you know, like you enter and it was game time like this,
Yeah.
you know. There was no like, well, let me figure it out, like how to log
Yeah.
into my email. It
There's
was
no,
like, log into your email right now because you need to get on.
because you need to be like on 50 emails. There's a lot. Yeah, there was no easing into the job. There was
Yeah.
no, there was no easing into it for sure. It was like game day on day one. So I had to learn really, really fast. Luckily, I had an amazing colleague. Caroline helped me really
Yeah.
be able to dig in fast. She was so supportive. I asked 1,500 questions, and she never, if she was extremely annoyed by it, she never let it show. So she was great. And so, yeah, it was really fast learning an entire new system. And, you know, I thought, especially like, I was like, okay, I kind of know what to expect. I had my internship over the summer working for an opera company. I'm going to go into it. I think I know. I know it's going to be more intense. It's a different, I think I got this. And then it was the first couple of weeks, and I was like, oh man. I don't want to say I didn't, you know, I don't got this, but there was a learning curve. It was a really intense first couple of weeks. And we had some really awesome teaching moments. So, and it was a struggle at times, you know. There were some days where I went home being like, this is rough. Like, can I do this? Am I good enough for this? Can I figure it out? And you know, we got to the other side, and I did, and I learned, and it was hard, but it was really amazing and a huge growth personally and professionally. So
No, I was very, you know, I didn't panic. We had our moments at the beginning where it was like, oh God, you know, like, but I think that definitely we had a blessing with Caroline was there. I was also very thankful that previous we had, my previous colleague Meredith Wallace was there for kind of like, we had very good transitions in the artistic department. I have to say, you know, like we Meredith kind of helped Caroline, and then Caroline was also reciprocating that to you, you
mm-hmm.
know. So that I was very proud of the team kind of like ethic. And then I think that you know, like we were so fast into getting into so many different changes at the same time, that I think that now you're trained in a way that it's like nothing fazed you, because
Right.
we have gone through so many things. At the same time, you also, you know, people don't know this, but you started as the support, as the artistic coordinator, but what some of the main responsibilities, and I see him there, so tread carefully. Uh, you also were supporting not only like me, but you were also the main person, the contact person of a huge music director, rock star Emmanuel Villon. So how was that also?
It was, I mean, I was nervous. And of course I was nervous. Emmanuel goes,
Emmanuel.
careful. Noted. Um,
Huge. Huge, careful.
um, of course I was nervous working for you, obviously, but I had already gotten to know you a little better. Whereas
Hmm.
the minute I started working with Emmanuel, we had never met face to face. So that was very nerve wracking, and knowing his huge reputation and not wanting to mess up, and making sure that everything I did was the right way, the way, you know, he was used to things, especially with the transitions with the jobs, with having different people work the job over the past couple of years. So I was really wanting to try to maintain consistency in how things were done, but I was definitely very nervous, having never actually met him, and I didn't meet him until I think it was at least a solid month into the job. So we're already communicating over email and phone and everything to get, you know, housing taken care of, and all the details that go along with being a top conductor in the world who's traveling from huge house to huge house. So yeah, It was a little nerve-wracking, but we got there. We
You
got through
jump
it.
in right away.
Yeah.
No, no, no. You did great. But well, so there's like you get into the groove of things. You're putting shifts in rehearsal department. You're suddenly involved. You went from UNT, like a very specific kind of cocoon experience, to suddenly like these myriad of casting names and operas that you're like, oh my God, I don't even know how do we go, right? Like,
Hmm.
which are the characters?
Right.
And it really got pushed immediately into a really, really intense session. Did you had a certain way that you managed? Because I saw your growth artistically really fast. Like you were starting to get very familiar. Can you share a little bit where like, okay, these guys are talking already X amount of knowledge and I need to catch up in that way. And also sometimes transformation into your like concepts that you learn in college, but you don't put them into play until you are in game time. And then suddenly it's like, well, maybe it's not about like I remember you of a particular anecdote that it still makes me like kind of like reminiscence with fondness about that. It was about you started talking about so in like anatomical terms about singing,
Oh God.
and Caroline and I just look at each other as like we're the pros. Like we don't talk about theory, we talk about like like game
Yeah.
time and speed time. And it was you were like well then the adduction of the core, and it was like okay, like we are on particular. So that kind of like shift into like academia into the pros, can you describe a little bit the difference of speed too?
Yeah. So it's it's hard because you spend I spent 7 years talking about vocal pedagogy. So it's really weird when you get into the business and you're like, oh, that's not that it's so much more than that. So that was a
Yeah.
huge learning moment for me where it's like, I wasn't seeing the forest, I was seeing the tree, the whole expression of that. And so that was a really awesome moment of talking about that and being like, well, that's not what we're looking at right here. Like, if you're going to be doing teaching and doing really hard technical work and that's your calling, that's your thing, sure. But that's not what we're doing here. That's happening on its own, and we're looking at what's happening after that. We're looking at the product and the emotion that's the main thing, and we want to get to the other end of it, which is telling the story. And that's how the story is being told. It's the mechanism through which it's being told, but that's not what we're focusing on here. So it was a huge learning curve, and it as much as I already knew about opera and as much as I followed things, I realized I had to get to a new level. So it meant that I had to like be on opera news all the time, and I had to be making sure I knew who everyone was. I was on Opera Base. What was the latest role they sang? What was this? Who did they sing with? How are the voices paired together? So that when you're learning how to cast them, okay, so we want yeah, we want a darker sound. We want a more balanced sound. This person might have a brighter timbre and it could stick out a little. So I started learning so much more about the big picture, which was huge and so, so important. So yeah, it meant I had to dig into things that I had only like surface learned about throughout my academic experience, and kind of do a flip flop of what I really dug deep into.
That's really really awesome. I think one of the things that we should also talk about is that what do you do when you a lot of our singers that are here or our friends that are here, they have, if they would not sing, probably they would like to be in an artistic department. It's kind of like what everybody would love to do. At least most of the singers that I talk to, if
Mm-hmm.
they go into administration, they would like to be involved in the artistic administration or casting
Right.
process. So I got that moment with my boss almost right away when Ian was my direct boss, and I started in your position 6 years ago. Um, but I remember like, and I asked you, okay, I need a young suggestion for what it was for a small role, and like you took like a week to give it, and I was like, I was boiling. I was like, seriously, if I get asked, I would just like vomit in the minute,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yes, or fundraising too. I agree. I agree.
Yes.
Hello, Lisa, our
Hey,
head of
Lisa.
strategy here. TDO. But you took a week, and then I came as like, and you were like, oh my God, I was just really trying to research. Can you walk us a little bit about that moment?
Yeah. So when so it's like maybe week 2, week 3, and you're starting to do your Karate Kid. You want me to start looking at how the casting process goes, and so I'm learning all these things, and so you're like, all right, Annie,
Your
here's the test.
fiance. It's like, I remember that.
Yeah,
I'm
you're looking
sorry,
at me
Andrew.
like
I'm sorry.
panicking about it on the other side. Yes, thanks to Andrew for getting me through my nerves and all this. But yeah, and so I felt this immense pressure that I had to bring forward the perfect person, and that I had all this pressure that it was like it needed to fit the opera, it needed to fit the age, it needed to fit the look, it needed to fit the sound, it needed to fit everything. And so because of that, I took so much time to research it, which is so dumb because I had the name on the tip of my tongue and I decided I needed a week to confirm it rather than just spitting it out there and having you say, oh, no, I don't want to go in that direction, but that's a good idea. But like, no. And it's like, I could have done that a week previously and not wasted the time. So it was a real lesson in learning to not be scared of your gut instinct and know that sometimes it's not going to work, but you need to throw it out there rather than doing research for an entire week and your boss is like, the heck? Like, so yeah, it was a huge, again, another great learning experience. And I am glad that it happened early on in the process because it, rather than you giving me that test 3 months later, I was able to start to figure these things out more quickly.
Well, as you know, one of the concepts that I talk in my talks and in my monologues, and why you're crashing here today, it is that it is that I'm about to play with what you get, with what you are. You know, like we cannot hide who we are. And you were coming from the singer's world. You know, we have Carolyn that comes from the stage management world. We had Mary that came from conducting. You know, so she was a privileged part of the Heart Institute Women Conductors. She was a conductor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you were the singer coming in. So you needed to play from the singer perspective of bringing this is where I can bring it, and also the young part, and this is where we're going now a little bit. You came with a very, very fresh, you know, we are like, I think we're almost like 15 years apart. And
Yeah, right
and
on each end of the millennial spectrum.
I'm not a millennial, and I will still stick at it.
Hey,
But
first year millennial, and I'm the last year.
wow, goodbye, goodbye. So anyway, following a little bit what Christian Manhorn used to say, like this is our time. I feel that in my generation we're arriving to that time where we are the singers, we're the directors, we are the casting directors, we're the CEOs. It's now in our hands to kind of like move it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but I remember when I came into the workforce at 25, I was like getting I was immigrating in Mexico. I was learning the ways, you know, of getting into professional opera in the United States. But you play with what you are. You play with the young aspect. You play with the singer aspect. So we were about to get into a project where needed, you know, a lot of involvement of people and singers. And like, what was your first thing when you were presented with the Heart Institute for Women Conductors? It was right away. It was like, and it was you were 2 months into that, and you have to be like 2 weeks on for everything. And you walk us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, definitely it was crazy because you start emailing on day one. You're emailing with all these agents, and you're emailing with the singers that are coming, and it's kind of just surreal that you're like, these are the names that I like, I have posters of, that I'm like, and you're emailing these people, and you're emailing their agents and these big name agents that you've heard, rumors about and how amazing they are. And so that was really crazy in the planning aspect. And then when you jump into the Heart Institute, like, you're not messing around. These are like, I mean, honestly, like 17, 20-hour days. Like, I don't even, it gets crazy because you're up in the morning and you're doing the 9 to 5 portion of it. And then you're doing the evening portion of it with all of the rehearsals and everything.
Hmm.
So you're going from being up at 6, 7 a.m. and you're finishing your day at 11:30 p.m. But it's really amazing because you're getting to know these incredible women who are on this similar journey of trying to just, break that glass ceiling. And it's really, really inspiring and awesome. So even though it's like really long days, you're with your colleagues for just hours and hours and hours, and we're making jokes about just sleeping in the office and getting cots, because what's the point, of going home at that hour anyways.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of long hours, but it's doing it with the knowledge of that you're on this mission for something greater, and you're seeing the results already of past years. Like, I'm fortunate to come into it. This was the 5th year that the Dallas Opera is doing it. We're seeing the amazing changes happening in the world with these women. So for me, it was an immense privilege to be with the next crop of female conductors that are going to be at the top of the game. So again, long hours, lots of good quality time with all the colleagues in the planning and the managing of all the rehearsals and the sessions and everything, but so worth it.
No, I agree. I am very proud of that part of the company, and well, in general, a lot of the company, what we do, but precisely like the Heart Institute is a very close project. But I think that that is true. Like, you have to just go in and jump in and try to help the change as much as possible. And that's why, like, we see now certain themes in how to be successful into joining an artistic department or into administration. It was, like, be who you are, have an opinion, because that, for you and for your new employer, is a fast way to know if you're going to be a fit, to be
Mm-hmm.
as much honest, like, of course there's ways that everybody, like it's like knowing a person for the first time, like the barriers of familiarity they get expanded. But if you keep a
Mm-hmm.
certain originality and a true to your first impression pitch, it's going to be a way more successful, uh, you know working environment later. You're saying, like, not being afraid to be in the moment and in the speed, and trying to be always prepared. You have to study, you have to be ready to go, you have to check what is happening. But at the same time, like, if you are not confident enough to try something, how are you going to learn that maybe that was not the right thing? If you're always in the corner, like, it's very difficult for people to notice you too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all the time it has to be a certain added value to advance in the company. And that's when we get into these, like, incredible period that we are in the past 8 weeks, precisely because you survived your the first day, you then the Heart Institute, then we started, you were giving a little bit the stewardship of the new vocal competition,
Mm-hmm.
with the guild, and you have your experiences managing a guild that is very different, that of different parts of the fandom part,
Right, right.
um, that and we were in the process of, you know you and I building a lot with the team, a possible formation for a studio program, a young artist
Mm-hmm.
program. So we're getting into the groove. We are about to open the second part of the season. We have our heavy hitters. We're opening with Don Carlos Superstar Cast, a new double bill, with Dallas Black Dance that had its own challenge. And we ended with Pretty Ann and Larry Brownlee and Xavier Andoaga, Luke Meacham, all these superstars coming in to sing Barber of Seville, and a concert of for hope and integrity. We were rolling social
You are.
messaging, empowerment, everything is there. We're starting to take care of our young artists. We did a concert in the mall, like all these beautiful things. You
Mm-hmm.
are, and because of, like, situations of our staff, our head of marketing and our head of social media, they leave the company at the end of January, and in
Mm-hmm.
between, we were supposed to start promoting, like, Don Carlo, that I was starting rehearsals March 9.
Right.
So they let us, you and I have a very, very fun, like, addiction to understanding social media, trying to crack it a little bit, and
Yeah.
how can it can help social, classical music.
Right.
And so we both, like, raise our hand, and Ian and Lisa let us kind of take over social media for in the meantime, where they were trying to hire somebody with time. So we
Mhm.
launched it on season announcement. We did a little bit of that, and
Mhm.
then we did a tiny bit on Don Carlo. And we were preparing a few things, and then 2 days into Don Carlo, boom, this happens.
Yep.
What happened, Annie? What happened since there?
So yeah, I mean, we literally we had our first official day of rehearsal. We had our meet and greet with the Don Carlo cast, and then that was on Monday, and then that Wednesday we decided to shut down because coronavirus. It was officially hitting America really really hard. It had already been, but it had now affected our company in more of a personal way through just through some like indirect staff members. We knew that we needed to start taking some extra precautions. No one had it specifically, but we wanted to be super super prudent with our response to it,
No.
not take anything for granted. So we shut down. We shut down at 5 p.m. and that meant that within another week or two, our whole season was shut down. So we figured, what do we do now? How do we keep getting the message of opera and the message of classical music? How do we keep it alive during this time? And so after a lot of brainstorming and just starting to experiment the first week or so with what we wanted to put out there, we started the soap opera series with our Don Carlo artists, and we just started playing around with ideas. And we
I
then
think, if I
decided,
may interrupt you for a second,
oh yeah,
the
yeah,
very first thing that came, that we like, I remember like getting out of um, Lucas Meacham, if he is there watching
yes,
us, and his incredible wife Irina Meacham. They offered to do a concert, a
mm-hmm.
recital. We were still in kind of very limited people that could do. So you went in and filmed it with Kaylee Carroll, our company manager, and you both were there with like two different cell phones and a laptop, and we
Yeah,
did it. We did a first recital, and after a week, and we didn't even boost that post.
no, yeah, we
We
weren't,
just left it, and organically it arrived to like 50,000 households, like different accounts.
yeah,
And we were like, okay, there's something here.
yeah.
And we keep it doing, and then yeah, like here we are. But sorry, I just want to interrupt you. It was Lucas Meacham, the very first one that
Yeah,
led us.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. He got us started. So a huge thank you to Lucas and Arena who
Yeah.
put on an amazing live stream. We were all 6 feet apart, we swear. And yeah, we started with that. And we started doing some other live stream recitals, which was really exciting. And then we started coming up with the idea, and by we I mean you, came up with the idea that we need some original content because we want to have something that separates Dallas Opera, and so that besides doing live stream recitals, we want to be putting out things that no one else is putting out at this point. And so with that, the TDO network was officially born, and we started reaching out to specific artists that we knew would not only enjoy the process, but they had the personality and they had the ability to really sell their own platform with it and create some truly unique and amazing original content, which over the past 6 weeks we've seen amazing numbers, amazing success, and we're just really proud of our content creators. So
Yeah, I agree. I think that, one of the most beautiful parts of what I have to say, I have had incredible years with Dallas Opera, and I don't want to take from anything that we have accomplished in the company, but I have to say the way that we have been involved with this TDO network is something that I have never seen. It was something that I don't think that you and I expected to be in a month having 750,000 accounts responding to our content. Last week only we had like 60,000 post engagements just in one week of people sharing, commenting, liking our content. 200,000 people have seen our videos in 4 weeks. So it's something that I just never expected, and I have to say, like a big kudos here to Annie, and that's why I wanted her to come in, even if she actually just crashed out. herself, uh, the because it takes a lot of work. It's not just only about, I think that this is the beautiful part, and this is where I'm going to brag a little bit about the team part here, is that we play again with who we are, right? I am, I don't look at the forest, I look at the planet, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so
You take that metaphor to the
humongous
next level.
picture. And then I come in, and of course, it has to be processed with Ian and with everybody. But before we're gonna pitch it, I always go to you and Caroline.
Hmm.
My direct kind of reports, and and Caroline is always gonna see it like right away operational,
Hmm.
right? And you're gonna be always like, oh my God, how can I make it relevant from the main users, like the people that use it, that is 18 to 44, that we have now crack this incredible, like one of the things that classical music always is aching
Hmm.
is that is how do we reach the millennials? How do we reach 18 to 44 so we can steward them by in 20 years they become the donors, right? The
Hmm.
typical structure of donors. How do we become them involved? There's all these like young professional nights that we do in every opera company and all these kind of things. But suddenly when we went and explained them and we reach them in their language, like that's our main demographic where we are now today, like 18 and
Right.
44.
Hmm.
So but it was exactly, we went into a methodology and you immediately were like, well, okay, we need young people, and they need to have tech skills. But besides all that, like, a lot of the things that you see on TDO Network, like the blurbs introducing the posts, the hashtags that we come in, the artwork in the posters, the way that the videos are looked in certain ways, it's all you, Annie. Like you have a lot of the look, a lot of the sleekness of TDO Network. It came from what you've been doing. So can you tell us a little bit what is your daily with the TDO network, that it's like 120% of your day?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun, which is why it's okay that it's 120% of my day, because I really enjoy doing it. But I don't know. I mean, as it started to kind of organically become what it is now, I just started playing with. I mean, there's certain apps that people just know that those are the ones that help make things sleek and help make things unique. And so I started playing around on Canva, to try to start to create. I wanted to create a brand for us. I wanted us to have a certain image, a certain look, and I wanted to make sure, like you said, it was approachable to that exact age demographic, to those millennials, that we want to make it attractive for them. And so there's just certain looks. It's kind of the influencer look and the branding look that we wanted. And so I started trying to put that on our shows, creating titles with their shots and making each one unique to each show. So a lot of my day is just kind of planning out how to keep creating that brand. So that's making our captions and making sure all of the captions, have a certain tone and a certain vibe. We don't want, for this particular mission, we don't want it to be too institutional. We want it to be more approachable, and not so uppity, but just more reachable to our audience. So that's a part of how I'm creating our captions. Same thing with our artwork, making it look professional, but also, like you said, making it look fresh, making it look young, and just a lot of planning, a lot of video editing. I've really dug into learning how to do some video editing on the fly, and that's been a really fun skill to acquire. I'm still working on it, still learning every day, but it's things like that where it's like you need to learn how to on the fly. So I tried to take what skills I already had and apply them, and then what skills I didn't have, I'm sitting down and it's 11 p.m. and I'm watching all the YouTube videos to figure out the tricks and the best ways to apply it to our product. And so, yeah, a lot of the day is just planning the next week's post, planning the next day's post. Now that we have going on, I think we're at 12 12 shows that we're putting out weekly. So it's managing that schedules too. There's a lot of time management that comes into it. And so it's making sure that we have our promos and they're in and they're being posted around 24 hours before the actual show so that our viewers have it in their brain the day before, comes the day of. And we're doing that every single day, making sure we have promos. But in between those promos, we're posting that day's episodes. So it's making all of those captions for promos for episodes, making sure that they're posted in a certain way that gets the most views. So you and I are playing around with the insights and saying, okay, well, what gets more views if we post it as a YouTube link or as we upload the video directly? How do we make it work on Instagram? Is it better if it's under that 15-minute line where they can just watch the whole episode, or if we post the link on a link tree? So it's a lot of experimenting, and we've kind of come to a place where we're figuring it out.
And I think also, you know, at the end of the day, it's another part of, see, there's a Miyagi always lesson that I have in these ones. It's that at the end of the day, in your journey of this kind of year at TDO, there were again the themes that we have of really the philosophy of TDO Network, the Artist Department, Dallas Opera, like what do we do, and always then as company is. We work really hard, right? We are self-starters and self-educators. Like if we don't know the answer, it's we don't literally ask for recommendation in Facebook. It's like we Google it, we tutorial it, we workshop it, we ask, and then eventually, you know, if we kind of like really need help, then we go outside of our boundaries. But we try to be very self-independent and good collaborators because we come prepared on that one. We thrive in crisis, you know, like we just get going. Like it's something that I feel that especially the company has been really good at just kind of roll with the punches and find a way to keep still themselves relevant and allow the people that can do it or have a passionate shine. Like I saw it immediately that you were so into social media, that you have a certain look, that you were very passionate. And I was like, why stop it and putting someone in a silo because she's in charge of the schedules when she can actually be shining this? And in a way also kind of like, you know, in an era where there are furloughs, there's like all these things, like that also immediately became a way for you to be part of a essential personnel, part of the team, and move your value to the company in a different way. So there was a lot of business decisions that by moving you into that way, we preserve employment, we recognize talents, and amplify your brand, you know, as Annie Penner, right? So adrenaline rush.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing, Suzanne. I was thinking the same thing. Like we run with that adrenaline rush. We use it to our advantage.
Yeah, I know, like, you know, we have so many of those things that I think that it's a very special place to work with. But in a way, you know, I'm very proud that you have been able to navigate those, you know, wax off kind of moments where you're like, I'm not seeing this, like, why am I just doing this? But you have been able to say, like, you know, if I have to suddenly like learn about 50 operas and just kind of transcribing, and eventually I'm seeing like certain names are popping into the same kind of repertoire. Like if there's like the same person that is suggested as Adina is suggested as Gilda, and then she's suggested as Nanetta. So maybe there's, you know, you start learning all these things.
Yeah, patterns.
Exactly. Sure. Yeah. Patterns. So I think that's very good, and you have been able to translate and explore. Like even when I see you 8 weeks before today, from when we started, like your skill set in social media management has grown. We started with some of my influencer friends gave us a schedule of kind of like social media, and we kind of, that gave us a little bit of structure. But then after 2 weeks, we both were like, okay, we have too much work, that it's that we have to make it our own, you know. And we brought our project manager Carolyn to give us structure. But that's the thing, is like there's no, I think that there's so many lessons to learn in your year for what is about to happen.
Right.
in classical music, you know. You have to be yourself
Mm-hmm.
to keep going and being relevant. You have to be ready that the crisis is going to find you. So you need to be informed. Watch the news every morning
Yep.
so you can
Yep.
come
Know
prepared
what's
and what
happening.
you know what is happening, and so you arrive already kind of like with a certain angle, a certain perspective, because everybody's going to ask for your opinion. You know, they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to ask for everybody else's when they ask about you. That's second. Roll with the punches and put the hours. We're gonna need it to keep classical music relevant. You know, you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have to find that beauty on enjoying the hours, enjoying the journey, enjoying that this is a new era, and it's like rules are being made every day. And when are
Mm-hmm.
we, instead of thinking like, oh my God, the way that we thought is gone, how can we thrive in this new arena? Because everybody's kind of brought from zero and we have
Right.
to start again, right?
Yeah.
So,
Everyone's on the same playing field now. We have to figure out how it works for each individual and each company and going forward in the post-COVID life.
and lastly, and I think that you and I have had those moments in different senses, and I think that members of the team that I have seen before, past and current, they have found a certain moment where there's a project or there's something that becomes their aha moment, that is this is me, right? This is who I am, and this is how I'm going to bring value to the organization. I felt that, for example, in Caroline's has been like, well, you know, I'm a master planner. I'm a person that keeps there. So she PMs beautifully a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things, right?
Yeah.
And in
Turns it
my
into an art form.
yeah, in my case, was the Heart Institute for Women Conductors when I came in. Like there was nobody that wanted to manage it, and there was not precisely a manager. My boss at the time was creating it, and it was I became kind of his bouncing person, and then the executor of that, and then boom, it happened the same way that it happened with you. Like they
Mm-hmm.
give us social media, but eventually you were the one posting it, you were the one that had ideas and writing it and wanting to be so heavily involved that eventually it's like, okay, Annie, like you are in the controls, you're in the joystick,
Yeah.
you have to put the post. This is the strategy that I think, and then you're like, well, I saw this, why don't we tweak it this? And you start creating your own that eventually it is so personal that it's not work, it's passion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is, I hope that one of the lessons that we learn for the reinventing of the industry, for the restarting the industry in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
those traits of self-awareness and self-transformation that eventually when you do it, owning it with the work and you become their own expert, it becomes not a work. It becomes a passion that then you get paid for it. Very, very high. See, the planet, not the wood.
Yes. I know. Literal next level metaphor of
Yeah.
the trees and
I
the
think
forest.
Suzanne has a great question. Has this
Yeah.
affected, and it's something that we bounce a lot,
We've
your
talked about
career
this. Yeah.
goals? Like, do you still want to be a casting director? Do you want to move into social media? What are you thinking? Do you want to produce multimedia? Do you want to be your own influencer? Do you have your own projects coming up?
Yes. So it's a really good question, and obviously, I'm playing around with it right now, and we're gonna just see how time like what evolves. But I think that this has really brought out an angle that I didn't expect to see coming, and I really do love. I really love that we can use social media for good and to make classical music more relevant and to make opera relevant and to bring it to the masses, to bring it to the younger people. Social media is where advertising is right now. It's where everything is being like thrown. I mean, everything is there. So I think if we can utilize that tool for classical music, then we can help the main goal, which is to bring it to everyone that we've been wanting to reach for years and years and years. So I think right now I'm really excited about the possibility of kind of being at the helm of that goal. So as a result of that, I mean, I love casting. I love training in that. And I hope that it's in my future in some way, shape, or form. But I kind of want to find a way to meld these two things together. And so right now I'm working on a project. I'm actually going to be launching a website, a blog that's just talking about all of these issues, talking about the next generation getting involved and how we can bring this art form to that generation, and how we can have the most resources available to those people who may not have a mentor who's in the trenches and that can teach them. So I'd love to take everything that I've learned and everything that I have through my connections and my colleagues and people that I've met in the business, and put all that information in one place. And also in a way, kind of maybe possibly create like the BuzzFeed of the opera world, to have it be a place where you can go and you can see the lists of things that you should be doing by the time you're a senior in high school or a senior in college. Trying to figure out what in the world a young artist program even is, if you don't have the resources to get the facts on that. Because not every college, not every teacher really has the real, the raw, and the relevant of what the industry is. And so we're working really hard to launch this as a resource for young artists, for millennials, for high schoolers, and for people who are already involved in the business that just want to be staying up to date on all of the latest in the industry. So
all your fans, this is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
You're your fans.
So we're really excited. We're going to be launching that. We're going to be launching that this week. So keep an eye out. Yes. The 3 R's, the other 3 R's. We had our reading, writing, and arithmetic, and now we have the opera 3 R's. And so I'm really excited to be launching that.
Where are we going to be able to see you? Do you have already like a domain? Like, I know you're working on it, but like, come on, do the commercial.
Yeah. Okay. So the commercial. So
dominate. Exactly. Go dominate.
Yes. Time to dominate. Yeah, as the boss man says. So it's going to be called anniepenner.com. The vibe is, so we've been playing around with the name Opera and Coffee. And so the domain is going to be anniepenner.com, and it's going to be associated with all of my social media accounts, so that's where you can go to for the latest info and all of that. And the idea is just going to be chatting all about the latest in opera. And so what we want to do is open the conversation. I'm going to use all my resources that I have at this point to throw all the information that I possibly can into this blog, into this website. And it's not necessarily going to be an authority, but it's going to be a conversation. So I want to see everyone's thoughts, opinions, comments. What do you think about this information? Do you think it should be this way? Should we change it? Should we be on a different path? So essentially,
all the myths that don't pass from like the college, like hallways to the pros.
Yes. So part of the main goal of this is the Mythbuster. It's going to
by
be
Gossip Girl.
By XOXO Gossip Girl.
Well, Annie, on that, because we have a minute and a half.
Oh shoot! Yeah.
Thank you so much for crashing my Saturday.
Thank you for allowing me to crash and to my own monologues.
It got a little bit monologue-y at sometimes, but no, don't worry. You were great. Yeah, right now it's the school, right?
Yes.
So anyway, thank you for everybody that tuned in to Creative Conversations. Thank you to the Dallas Opera leadership and board, as per usual, to all our colleagues that were with us today. Please help me again to praise the controller right now in social media. Now you know who's posting a lot of the things that you see in our social media channels. And the fabulous Annie Penner, you have 30 seconds to say goodbye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. This was such a privilege. Thank you, David, for allowing me to come and crash. It was amazing. Also, it's my dad's birthday. Happy birthday, Dad. I wanted to shout out to that.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Dad. But yeah, I'm really excited about launching this website. Look for it this week, anniepenner.com. And thanks so much for having me. This was an amazing conversation.
Okay. Well, ciao, guys. Go dominate. See you next week.
Go dominate.